I'm gonna kill you with my mouth.
Just a few more minutes.
Tyler,
Yeah.
what's going on?
Well,
I said, hey.
I have made a very quick cup of, like, just what would it be considered? It's just a cup of coffee. I mean, I have a cup of coffee. I'm too tired to explain this. You know how you at the store they have coffee that's cold in a big jug and you can purchase it. I've done that and I'm having some.
So, well, I guess I'm not drinking anything. I thought I was going to be drinking the little bit of drink I left in my Sonic cup last night before I went to bed, but it appears to be empty, so.
You, the number, and I know that you're confident that it's always okay and all that, but the number of things that you're comfortable with leaving out and then eating, like the next day or 2 days after or something like that, it astounds me.
Well, and what are the odds that literal Sprite would go bad overnight?
Probably no chance at all. But I can't do it.
I can.
Well, good for you.
I didn't because I no longer had the ability. It seems because it's not empty. But
It's just not there.
what are we talking about today?
We're not talking about anything at the moment, so we must mean that we have an actual topic that we should probably go towards, which could probably be the next book of the Stormlight Archive.
Ah, yes. Words of Radiance.
They were very radiant words. No, there wasn't really a lot of radiant words in this one, not in particular.
Yeah. I'm sure I don't know what you mean. Oh, so
Okay.
by the way, the second bad thing that I kept mentioning that you had no idea what it was, you discovered it.
Oh, yeah, so it'd
Yeah.
be Yasna.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah. Yasna, whatever.
Yeah. But
Yeah,
anyways,
yeah.
I think so. Yeah, we finished book 1 last time. And this is the start of a whole new book. It is called The Words of Radiance.
I don't remember the name of the part. Or the name of the... They didn't name the parts. I am so tired. I'm going to stop talking, and then I'll just pretend to agree with you.
Yeah. But they... I don't even know what I'm talking about either. What am I talking about?
Well, you could start by telling me where all the cookies have gone.
In Hershey's Cookies and Cream.
Okay.
I knew that one. But I am I don't know anything. Any freaking thing. Oh yeah. No, I don't. Hold on. I'm so tired. I am so tired.
What? I'm right there with you. But here's the reason why you're so off your kilter. Sean, if we're talking about a book together on a Saturday morning, we're both thinking about what we should be drinking, why would we be doing that?
It's likely because we're the stupid whiskey brothers.
This is incredibly accurate. More so than normal on this particular day. And today I think we're just as stupid brothers because I'm just going to be having coffee and you don't sound like you're having whiskey either.
I don't have any at the moment. But, what am I talking about? Oh, yeah. So, yeah, the book. Yeah, so, yeah, we started part 1. Or no, we finished part 1. We started the book, finished part 1. So, Tyler, I believe it's your turn for a comically short synopsis.
Okay. comically short synopsis.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, I usually have one prepared. I'm pretty sure I can still do this. So everything is so much better for all the people that used to have everything be happening really, really bad for them because someone who technically Kaladin hates is now someone that Kaladin loves and is throwing himself in front of everything else for because he's the only person in the entire world that matters. And now someone very important to Shallan is dead, and technically someone very important to us. She's also dead. And then when we find out that she's dead, we find out that we're a lot better than we thought we were. And then we come back to find out that everything's a lot worse than Kaladin thought it was because someone else is there that he didn't want to be there. And then for all the other people, everything else is really not that bad, but it seems like it's getting even worse because all the guys who are really dark are trying to kill them.
All right, that's pretty good.
That'll work.
The
ending was the best part.
Yeah. So yeah, starting at the beginning.
A very good place to start.
I just read this week, and I didn't even start till the beginning of the week, and I've already forgotten the order in which the stuff happens. Like,
let's just start
ridiculous.
out with, let's see, the beginning. I think the beginning, there's like an epilogue-y sort of moment at the beginning, obviously, that doesn't necessarily jump right into our main characters. And we don't necessarily have to talk about any of those. I'm pretty sure we actually start off with things with some Dalinar things. Dalinar and Kaladin things is what we're starting with, so we can just dive into how that's all starting. We get the moments where Kaladin, where we see at the end of the first book, Kaladin is going to be guard, like a very exalted guard for Dalinar. Kaladin is.
Yep.
And we get to see kind of how he's going to be doing it. He actually talks to his men, and they go into some details about how they want to do it. Kaladin's kind of forming his unit. He is making certain people in command. Some have control over a bunch of the other old bridgemen that's training them. Kaladin is learning how to use his powers in this first little section too, because they're doing all those tests. And then we very quickly jump to Dalinar in a much more refined and relaxed version of his visions.
Yeah, well, it's more refined and relaxed version of them, leading into the somehow the single most hectic vision.
Oh yeah, which is a pretty cool one, by the way. It's actually I would love to see like someone make a scene or like a movie out of this entire stuff, just so I can see some of this stuff. But I wanted to point out something that I find very interesting.
Was it the fact that Tekalili from Moana popped out of the water and tried to kill him?
Tekalili, yes.
Or whatever.
You've combined two things together. So a lot of people, when they write books, they tend to have endings to the books, whether it's the end of and even if it's not the final book in a series, at the end of any particular book, they do this thing where they make everything have a nice, tidy, tight ending, right? And a lot of times there's a few things that feel forced. So you'll have a few that you're like, oh, it's kind of dumb the way you just kind of push that into place last second. But as long as we got there, it's okay. Sanderson, one of the things that I appreciated about him is at the end of the first book, everything got exactly where it needed to be at a very nice pace, and that was cool. And then he starts off this book by throwing so many things conveniently into place that it was so stupid. It was very strange. Like, it didn't ruin the book or anything by any stretch of the imagination, but I found it very weird. So essentially, it's like, okay, well, we had a lot of things that were causing us stress and anxiety, as stress and anxiety for the characters at the end of the first book, and they were like lower level worries for us, the reader, but they were still there. So, for instance, Shallan is like, man, I'm really excited that I'm going to be on this journey with Yesna, and we're going to go save the world, and we're learning together how to use our powers, and this is all very great. Man, I wish there's this big, long conflict that's been happening, a big problem with my family that's been building up through the entirety of the first book, and now we're here, and Yesna goes, oh, no, it's fine. And she goes, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Oh, well, you're engaged to this other guy, and then it's gonna fix all your problems." Like what? But there was a soul cast. Yeah, no, I fixed it.
No. She's taking it to her mother so she can fix it.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but yeah, no,
Like it's just like this. It's like a tidy answer.
well,
Everything's fixed.
yeah, well, see, I didn't read it as everything was fixed. It was a you came to me to steal the soulcaster. Well, I can just help you fix that one, and that helps one problem. So that doesn't help your money problems. And if I engage you off to this person, though, she because it's even said it's not going to fix the problem. It's just going to hold off everyone until something can be figured out.
No,
And
no, no.
so like and so
I'm
like
with you.
that was I didn't even view it as a here's a quick fix to the problem. It's a here look I said you're here and you can't help as so here's a way you can help from here, but it doesn't fix the problem.
No, no, you're missing what I'm saying just a little bit here. That was like
Uh-huh.
saying there's these huge problems in the first book, and
Mhm.
we've fixed a couple of them right there, and then we
Mhm.
jump over
Mhm.
back to Dalinar. One of
Mhm.
the big things that we have building through the entire, not the entirety of the first book, but we have all this, we'll just call it sexual tension between him and his,
Mhm.
what would be previous sister-in-law.
Yeah.
We kind of open up with them being really, really chill together because you have like Dalinar being this like the ultimate gentleman when
Mhm.
he's around her. Like, you should not be in here. I do not have a guard male present and to make everything here proper and prim. And now it's just like we're hanging out together doing whatever we want, and now we just
Mhm.
randomly put our hands on each other. It's very strange.
But that
And then we
ended
have
that ended with the first book though. After Sadius's betrayal, he is even in the first book he was like that. You didn't see a whole lot of it because there wasn't much opportunity, but it was heavily implied that he was done with that and getting that done and taken care of immediately after Sadius's betrayal.
this is true. There's
So
like an implication there, but there's
yeah.
just so many
Hmm.
little things like that that we were experiencing through the entirety of the first book, or thinking about through the entirety, or nearly the entirety of the first book. In the second book, they're like, "Yeah, we've made like one."
Hmm. And also, so the bit with Shalon, um, uh, I have to say this like I don't think that was forced or um uh or just hand waving anything at all. Again, like I said, I have the unfortunate experience of having read slightly ahead previously. So all I'm gonna say is that that is obviously just Yasna being the I'm trying to be a help, do this, you came with this problem and I'm trying to help with that problem. All I'm gonna say is it doesn't fix the problem. And so that is like so you find out in a later time that no, that that's great and all, but it doesn't fix the problem. And so the kind of the point of this then is for Shalon to have this, hey, look, it seems like my problem is fixed. And that's that's fantastic. Okay, this is a great thing to help, and yeah, it does help, but it doesn't fix it, and that's that's the point of it. It's kind of like a to make it seem like to make it seem to the characters as the reader that you're saying, hey, look, the characters are happy and their problems have been hand waved away, but they haven't been, and that's the whole point of it.
Okay, well, at the point I'm at, none of that has happened, so it seems
Yeah,
all very strange.
yeah. It seems off. But I don't even reading it. I didn't think it seemed off. Everything seemed to have fallen in place in the natural order in which it would to me. Like, I mean, not not in the same kind of um, not in the same kind of way that like you would say a story, not in the same kind of way that a story would necessarily normally go, but like it's the same kind of thing that like like the storytelling in Dark Souls. That is absolutely not the way that storytelling normally goes with things. The whole point of it is if you were this person and you went here, you're not just going to come across, as a person who's even a person on a mission going to do a certain thing. You're not just going to be, have somebody sit down with you and tell you the whole backstory of everything and how everything comes together and what's going on with that and everything. It's if you're, if you're on your mission and you're learning more about it, you're going to randomly talk to certain people and they're going to give, they're not going to tell you, the world's knowledge at that time, like in a role playing game normally would. They're going to, like, you're going to talk to this guy and say, oh yeah, I know a little bit about that, and then you're going to say, oh, I see that guy later. Hey, how's it going? It's, oh yeah, I've been doing this, and then later, it's like you come across each bit of information how an actual person in that position would, and I think that everything is, if these events were happening, this is a logical way for them to fall in place.
Mm.
Like, yes,
Clearly,
it's not typical storytelling, but it seems real.
Well, I'm obviously slightly off of that opinion, but oh well. Either way. But I'm sure I'll probably agree with you more once I actually read further ahead.
I was just talking about just those sections isolated, not without any further aheadness.
I know, but I've already stated that I didn't necessarily view it that way, but it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, but oh yeah, okay. So since we are since we were talking more about Yasna and Shalon than we were about the others, there's something I think is hilarious. The bit from Navani's journal, at the beginning of the chapter where Yasna is assassinated.
As happens to people.
So the Navani journal snippet, there's so many ways that could go, because reading it, at first it's the foreshadowing of what's about to happen in that chapter. Obviously, it's saying this loss was so much worse than Gavilar's, and then Yasna dies. Now, when you're first reading that, your immediate assumption is that it's talking about Dalinar dying at some point.
Right.
Because it would hurt worse for Dalinar to die than for Gavilar.
Also, doesn't it seem a lot less, it seems a lot less likely. Or it seems more like, it seems more likely that someone like Dalinar is in more immediate danger of dying, so we automatically assume him.
Yeah. And so it kind of throws you just a little bit when immediately after that Yasna dies.
Yes.
But I'm curious though, was that put in place as a, as a thing? So here's what's going on in this chapter. Someone's dying. And yes, it is definitely there for that reason. But I wonder if I could see this happening. Now us knowing, oh, that's what she means. Yasna died, and that's the worst loss that she could have had. But we don't really, so we know the dates of the journal entries, but we don't know the dates of the events.
Correct.
And so, and we know it's long after, because, spoiler alert, Navani doesn't find out that Yasna's dead until Shalon makes it to the Shattered Plains and tells her. I don't think that's a spoiler alert, because how on earth would she know otherwise?
How would she have figured it out, right?
And so we know it's at least that long before that journal entry is written. But what if it was long after? And what if, so this isn't anything from having accidentally read ahead. This and my next thing I'm going to say, these are just both completely guesses and speculations. What if she wrote it long after, and what if it actually was talking about Dalinar? And so it's double throwing you for a loop. It's like, oh, who's she talking about? Oh, it's Yasna, but it's not.
I mean, very well could be.
Okay.
That's something I hadn't really considered, because I was just kind of like, hearing that, then someone died. I'm like, that's why they said that. Dead person.
Yeah, and it was her daughter, and obviously,
you'd be messed up.
Yeah. So a spouse is one of the only things that is there are certain things that are people aren't supposed to be equipped to deal with, and one of them is a spouse dying, the other is a child dying. But when it's a spouse that you don't really care about, then it wouldn't be as bad. hence Navani and Gavilar. But uh, yeah, and so therefore the loss of a child would be far more devastating. But you know, so then that would be it. But also, she would care more about Dalinar dying than Gavilar also. So either way, it would be that'd be the case. Yeah, but anyways, and again, this is just a guess, not knowing from anything reading forward. There has been in the tiny bit that I read ahead that one time, there's been nothing to even imply this. This is just me making a guess. Just something about the way everything has been going. I think Yasna's faking it.
So I was about to say,
Mm-hmm.
I do not think she's dead. I haven't thought she was dead since like 2 pages after they're trying that it seems like she's dead. I don't believe so either.
Mm-hmm.
It was such a hard cutoff. We had zero amounts of, let's say, we'll say closure.
Mm-hmm.
When you kill a character off in a book,
Mm-hmm.
it's never just snap your fingers and they're gone. That doesn't happen unless you're reading Game of Thrones. That doesn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a very very strange way for a character to be dead.
Mm-hmm.
And a very very strange amount of time to do it in. Yeah, I don't think so either. I don't think she's dead. I was about to say that here in just a minute, actually, that I did not think that she was dead. I don't know, obviously, when we would find something out like this out, but I do not believe so.
Mm-hmm. I read I read a good book that was like that. I had to say I read a book that was like that, but then you just mentioned a book that was like that, the Game of Thrones. So I'm changing it to I read a good book that was like that. Um, uh, and it was.
But I like it.
I can't think of the name because I read it so long ago. I can't think of the name of it, but it was my first ever Dragonlance universe books that I read.
Yes.
And it was about a guy named Talandrith, I believe was his name. And they called him Toll, Tol instead. And
Is he the one that was banging a goblin?
say what?
Is he the one that was banging the goblin?
No.
Okay.
And oh, it was the funniest thing because like I had read some fantasy books before, but I'd never read anything quite like this. And to me, it was comical how this happened. It was good, but like that just it was the concept was comical compared to all the other fantasy books I'd read up to that point. They had established a series of main characters. I mean, there was the main character, which was Talandrith, and then there was the the girl he liked, and there was his good friend, the Emperor, and there was the general that was immediately under him, and he was, good friends with, and there was various family members of his and whatever. It was a trilogy. By the end of the first book, all of the main characters, except for Talandrith and the girl he liked, were all dead by the end of the first book. And the girl he liked was in a forced marriage with the emperor's evil younger brother.
You're like, okay, sure.
It's like because I remember finishing that, I said that was just the first book. Like there's nobody left. What's gonna happen in the second book? What's going on now?
I that always annoys me to death. Because they're like this is not what you said all this to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
But the reason why some of the Dragonlance books are kind of why they're very hit or miss for me.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes the authors are just like that. They'll just be like, what's a way that people normally write books? Let's do the opposite of that.
Mm-hmm. These wound up being good though, and like the other two books wound up being basically like a David and Saul kind of thing, with Talandrith and the new emperor. It wound up working out pretty good. Like the first book was just there to get the kind of to get the put Toll in a good position and then rip it out from underneath him and make the evil younger brother the emperor. And then the next two books were like I mean he wanted he goes I don't need to talk about that. We're not talking about that book now, but it was actually pretty good.
Well, that is good. I'm glad.
Oh, so
But the book that we're talking about is also good.
yeah. but now I have to say this real fast since we're already off topic. Typically, everybody has a different writing style, and for the most part, at least not for the most part, for the most part of what I have personally read, for the most part of what I have personally read, authors who happen to be women don't write in a style that I prefer, with two notable exceptions, and they both write Dragonlance books. That's Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman. Those are both very good authors, I think.
But I remember Tracy Hickman. Yeah.
They usually write together. But anyways.
Maybe, but I don't remember that. But we both digress.
Yeah. But anyways, yeah. So Shalon, Yasna's faking it.
Yes.
And that's where we're at. What?
And a baby.
And a baby. The baby's not faking. Patrick, who cares that Mama took that away? It was empty. You couldn't drink it anyway. But yeah. Oh, the next bit is Kaladin. Kaladin bursts into the room and he starts singing that Mark Harris song. And I can see the writing on the wall.
Oh yeah, because there's writing on the walls.
And
which is a very interesting, odd sort of thing.
Yeah, and then it's like and so he burst in, and Dalinar says, "Don't worry about it, Kaladin. You know, it's fine." He said, "No, I failed. I don't know how I could have possibly let someone in." He said, "No, it's okay. You're fine. Don't worry about it." He said, "No, I'll have to catch the killer." And Dalinar said, "We will never catch the killer." And
pretty much.
And they're like, "Oh, okay. Well, I still don't know how it got in." And they said, "Oh, he's fine. Don't worry about it. He's okay. Everything's good in here, and we're all right." And he goes, "Oh, okay." And then Kaladin leaves, and Dalinar says, "You know, I think I might have wrote that myself."
I believe I did that.
Mm-hmm. What? Well, anyways, but yeah, and then he's going through, and then there's a bunch of foreshadowing of, hey, that guy is coming. Oh, the guy is coming. Oh, good, the guy is coming.
Did you say the guy is coming?
The guy is coming.
There will be a guy coming.
Who's soon. The guy? And they showed up, and Dalinar says, "Guy, you made it." And they're like, "What is it?" And they build up a bunch of false suspense, like we're pretending we don't know who it is.
Yeah, what was with that? Yeah. Like, you had to read. It was like an entire, almost 2 whole pages of just like, Kaladin was sick. Kaladin thought bad things. Kaladin. And there's only one person this could be.
Speaking of which, by the way, that's actually how Kaladin's mind goes. It's just Kaladin over and over again. Yeah. But anyways, turns out it was I mean, if I was Kaladin, I'd be upset too if Amaranth showed up.
Amaranth. Yeah. That's someone else. Ugh.
Amaranth's a better person.
This is true. So that signals what you are talking about, technically speaking, is the end of part 1. That's kind of the last little bit. You have the 2 little epilogues. They're not epilogues. What are they called?
There's 3 interludes.
3. I just remember 2.
Yeah. I only remember 1. I just remember that there are 3. Risen is the only one that I can remember.
That must be the one that I don't remember. Which one's the Risen one?
Risen is a girl who raises a pot of grass. She was in book 1, and she was forced to raise that pot of grass, and she still has it in book 2. And then she goes to a huge great shell, so big that it's an island that people live on. And then they said, "Okay, now you need to be bold in order to make these guys trade with you." And And she says, okay, I'll be bold. And they showed up and she said, I'm bold. And they said, not bold enough, go away. And she said, how can I be bolder? I know. I will ask the island to trade with me. And she climbed down a rope to the island's face and said, Island, please? And then the island goes, harm, and bit the rope that she was on. And then it snapped and she fell. But she felt really, the island felt really bad about almost killing her. And so it softened the water with Spren to save her from dying. And then it gave her a bug.
Yeah. Here you are. Have the bug.
Which, I mean, I guess that's a fair trade.
It's
like, hey, I'm so sorry I almost killed you. Have a bug.
It's like watching a Sunny in Philadelphia, Always Sunny in Philadelphia episode. By the way, if you wonder why I've been slightly quieter and trying to make slightly less noise, it's because I had to make an emergency pit stop to the place where I'm at now.
The pit.
Yeah. I'm trying to think if there's anything else at all in this episode that was really worth talking about, because Dalinar's vision, I mean, it was technically it was cool to read, but it didn't really shed any light on anything, I didn't feel.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah. Well, it kind of did, I think, because it showed that there were starting at that point. That's when you're starting to see evil Spren. And then when you get into the interlude about Ashenai, is that her name?
I'm gonna not remember names as well as you, so just make something up and I'll believe you.
Okay, I'll say it's Ashenai. When you get to the interlude with Ashenai, and she makes the statement, and it's relating to the concept that they mentioned before about the or that was mentioned before about the Parshendi being the Voidbringers, and then of course the Knights Radiant being bonded to Spren, and she makes a reference to the Spren betraying them, which means that somehow the Spren and the Parshendi have a direct connection with the old gods, it seems. And I'm sure that the Spren are related to that somehow. And so what they're saying is, and so they said, okay, so if the Knights Radiant are back, then the Spren have betrayed us again. And so this whole thing, like, implies that they're like Spren on one side and Spren on the other side. And of course there's Odium, who is like, it's not really come up yet. He either is an evil Spren or he's a god that rules the evil Spren. And I guess that could make sense, I guess, because you have Odium, who's a god that rules the evil Spren, and then you have the other, then you have the other gods who rule over various other Spren. So, like, the red Spren like lightning, the storm, I guess that's probably the storm Spren that they found, that Ashenai is going to use at the next high storm to try out storm shape. Or storm form, that's what it is. I'm assuming that the red Spren like lightning that Syl saw earlier, that those are probably the storm Spren. And we know they're associated with Odium, who we know is a bad guy. But then Honor Spren, and we know Wind Spren are, and then since Syl mentioned that Honor Spren and Wind Spren are cousins, probably the Honor Spren too are associated with the Stormfather, who is either a Spren and everyone thinks he's a Spren, but he could
just Odin.
Yeah, would be like a god that rules over certain Spren. And so it seems like you see that, like, there are, we already see that there are major Spren / gods that are in charge of other Spren, the other lesser Spren. And so I think that's how this is going to wind up being. It's certain Spren are going to take sides, and then so these Desolation Wars, these are as much about these are as much about the these are as much about war between Spren as they are war between people and Parshendi or whatever. And then Yasna mentioned the fact that there were several desolations and the knights coming and then going several times, which means that this like knights so like and so this whole thing would happen. So like these people were, and then the Spren leave. Yeah. So these people come, and then the Spren leave, and then there are a few people who know the secrets of the Knights Radiant, but there are you know extremely few, if any, Radiants at this time. And then the Spren come back, and you have these people to teach them. But that is what I think. That is what's interesting about that's why I think the betrayal of the heralds, whatever they did, when it stopped or they thought it stopped the cycle, when they tried to stop the cycle, but it turns out it didn't. It just made it worse. That's why I think that killed the Spren, because that was the only time it's mentioned that the knights betrayed people. Was it the last one when they dropped all their swords and armor and everything? And why else would they have dropped them if it weren't for that? Weren't because the Spren were dead. And so this is the only time the heralds betrayed. So this is the heralds broke the cycle. This is the only time the knights betrayed, even though there was an end to the Order of Radiance. The Order of Knights Radiant after every single desolation. But this was the only time that happened. So the war actually will wind up, all these wars and desolations will actually definitely wind up revolving around Spren.
Yeah, no, I think that's they kind of make that a little more like what you're saying makes a lot of sense when you're reading this part one of this book, because that's not a thought that we would have had finishing up the first book. I think there's not a lot that I want to just add to what you said, because I think that a lot of that has to be the case. A point that I would like to make that I think is I'm finding odder and odder. We have the reason why I'm stumbling here is I have trouble remembering names in general. But Kaladin's friend,
Syl.
What's her name? Syl.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like Syl has to be something much more important, a character with a lot more gravity than we're kind of picking up on. I mean, it's kind of a layup to say that, obviously, because she doesn't have the right kind of memory. She's not really remembering a lot of stuff, and she's showing every time that something significant happens, it's showing that she's more important and more, more of a plot driving than we ever would have assumed up until this point. And I've been kind of struggling to think of what could she possibly be. And why would she have her memory loss? What would be happening? And I'm really starting to think, I think she's going to be, you have some of the Spren that obviously betrayed the Knights Radiant and all this kind of stuff. I bet you she was a bad guy. Was one of the betraying Spren.
No. It was. There wasn't a mention of Spren betraying the knights.
Evil Spren is what I meant by that. In this case,
it was a mention of Spren betraying the Parshendi. The Parshendi are the ones that said the Spren betrayed them.
But there are, in fact, evil Spren.
Yeah, there are evil Spren.
Yeah, she's one of them.
Yeah. So the only reason why I don't think that is because it's implied that there's not individual evil Spren, but types of evil Spren. And so, like, the Storm Spren would be a type of evil Spren. So because they're part of Odium, who is an evil Spren. There's the Storm Father and his Spren, which are not evil Spren. They're just like mean. They're chaotic good. They're good Spren, but they're mean. And then they're the other, and then I think so. Obviously, I think just in the natural state of things, the Cryptics I think are closer to being evil than the Honor Spren are. I don't think either of them are, but I think they're both good. But the Cryptics are closer to being evil. Whoops! Oh, whack a baby foot on the desk. Um, uh, and so, and so I think going by that argument, I think the more likely Spren to be close to evil would be Pattern.
No, I think they make it too obviously. I
Mhm.
don't think so with him, just because they give him, or he
Oh,
gives him, such like a
mhm.
scary start to everything.
Yeah, and no, I don't think he is. I think like that's the point of that's the point of the cryptics is that like because they have that. I think they only have that look well so they could have scared Shalon earlier when she first saw him. Is the only reason why the cryptics look like that.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
But also,
and yeah,
I
yeah. I
really
don't
do. I
think
would just
yeah, I don't think he is evil. I think Pattern is a good Spren. I also think so is Syl. Um, uh, but although that does make me curious to know though, what do Honor Spren look like in Shadesmar?
I do not know.
That'd be that'd be an interesting thing to find out. Mhm. I almost want to look that up. But Patrick, those are my headphones. Mhm. But yeah, what next? We went on for a long time about Spren. Is there anything else to talk about in this part?
Not to my memory.
Mm-hmm. Well, this may be a short episode then, if that's because there's not really. I mean, it was a short part. I mean, like I listened to it in less than 2 days worth of uh listening at work. Um, uh, and so yeah, it was a very short part. There wasn't a whole lot of new stuff in it. At least there was a whole lot of good stuff in it, but it wasn't like it wasn't a whole lot of discussion material in it. Um, uh, the next part is going to be bigger, so we'll have a full time on that. And I looked ahead to see how many chapters were in each part. So there were I think 12 chapters in the first part. Well, there was the intro, then 12 chapters, then 3 interludes, I believe. The second part has more than 20 chapters, and I think there's over 20 chapters or closer to 30 chapters in the later parts, and like always, part 5 is the shortest. So we'll have more time to talk about that. But okay, this is unrelated, but we're effectively done with that anyway. So I have to say this: best thing ever, Tyler.
Yes, I am. Continue.
Do you remember what the ruling was, what the nature of the ruling was in New York State Rifle and Pistol Association v. Bruin?
Oh wow, that was a hard left. Vaguely.
Okay, so it was basically this. It was um uh uh any gun law in the United States must under the Second Amendment um uh can only be constitutional if it coincides with the historical spirit of the time when when the Second Amendment was put in place. So that is to say, if there is if there is a law similar to that that existed during the time of the penning of the Second Amendment, then if that kind of law existed, then it's an okay law to have. Um, uh, and because of that, there's now someone who has filed a motion to sue for the repealing of the National Firearms Act. And and if it makes it to any court, now that the Supreme Court has made that statement, it has to coincide with the historical spirit of the Second Amendment. You don't see anything like that. No regulations like that because during the days of the Second Amendment or when it was penned, James Madison received. I think it was James Madison was sent a letter I said, "Hey, is it okay if I put cannons on my merchant ship in case I come across pirates?" And the letter came back as, "Why on earth did you write me that letter? That's literally the point of the Second Amendment."
Yes.
And so so now to say, oh, by the way, you have to register and tax all these types of guns and suppressors. That it if any court that actually abides by that statement is following the historical spirit, any court that abides by that will have no choice but to rule the NFA unconstitutional, and it will be overruled and repealed, and I will be happy and excited. Like, I don't even really necessarily want any NFA items. It's just like suppressors are fun. They save your ears. I guess short-barreled rifles are nice because you can transport them easier.
Quick scope people. Yeah.
Yeah, there are a lot of reasons why that would be good, but I would not. Even if I had the money, I don't think I'd immediately go out and buy a sawed-off shotgun or whatever. You know, I don't really care about it for myself. I mean, I guess I'd like I guess I'd like a suppressor to put on my rifle when I put 22 rounds through it, so I can have dead quiet 22 shots. But that'd just be it. That'd really be all I would all I would want from a from the NFA stuff. It's so good that, I mean, like, people have no idea. Like, we had New York v. Bruin on Thursday. Then on Friday of that week, it was a few weeks ago, but on Friday of that week we had Dobbs v. Jackson, and then all these things in light of New York v. Bruin are being sent down to lower courts, sent back to lower courts, saying, "Hey, now that we've told you how to rule on these again," and now we're having somebody sue to repeal the NFA. Like, is our country starting to turn around?
My concern is that the answer is no, and the answer is no because of something that's going to have to happen in the very near future, because obviously we have two things happening at the same time that are not great.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not. We have people who are screeching because things aren't woke enough,
Mm-hmm.
and then we have a president who is out to become. With I say this and I mean this genuinely.
Mm-hmm.
I think he has no other real agenda of any kind other than to appear to be the most woke president of all time.
Mm-hmm.
He has no clear direction, no clear reasoning, no clear anything other than every single time something pops up, he has this, like, it's like he gave someone with blue hair on Twitter the reins of the country.
Yeah.
So what's going to happen is people are going to complain, and then he's going to do some absolutely stupid executive actions, and it's going to be way worse than it was before. That's just what I've been thinking for a while now, and I think it's going to suck.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's also extremely possible.
I'm very doom and gloom about it, if I'm going to be honest.
Mm-hmm. Well, I just take each win as it comes, and then
when we come into this conversation, you're like, "It's a great day for America, everybody." I'm like, "But is it?"
Yeah. Well, no, it's not. I'll take each win as it comes, and then when the losses come, I'll take that too. Yeah, it is what it is.
It would not be a pro gamer move.
Mm-hmm. Anyways, now that we've called our president a piece of crap, I think that's all we need to say.
It's a good wrap up.
All right. All right. See you guys. Bye.